afternoon, or good evening from wherever you are in the world. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh from Durban, South Africa to the world. I am Bibi Amina Fili and this is Let's Sit Down. On today's edition, we have an inspirational interview coming up, a journey of a Nasheed artist. And joining me to have this conversation is world-renowned Nasheed artist, Zain bhikha.
See him standing with the Salihin welcoming them, and then he motions to me to come forward and drink from his hands.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh and welcome to Let's Sit Down.
Wa alaikum salam, Amina, and thank you so much for having me on your show. It's really a great privilege and honor.
Alhamdulillah. All right, so let's get straight into it. I'm sure you've been asked this question so many times, but who is Zain bhikha?
Well, I am I'm born and bred in Pretoria in South Africa, and grew up in a Muslim home. Alhamdulillah, we grew up in sort of late 70s, early 80s. My teens was mostly in the late 80s, early 90s, and I had a wonderful childhood. I mean, of course, the country was changing at the time, and we were all aware of the injustice taking place, and Alhamdulillah, working towards a democratic country in '94. But I always enjoyed singing ever since I was a young boy. My mom and my dad encouraged us to express ourselves. I grew up in a house full of women because I'm the only son, so three sisters, always competing for attention. Yeah. So Alhamdulillah, I always enjoyed singing, and I think because of those influences, I enjoyed singing, but not only that, I also enjoyed writing songs ever since a young age. And then Alhamdulillah, I'm very fortunate and blessed that this path led me to writing more spiritually connected songs. And I'm really blessed that that took place, because otherwise I might have just ended up not using the gifts Allah has given me, probably in the best of ways,
Absolutely. Now, I love that you said that you absolutely love your nasheeds, and it's actually an inspiration for you to get away, But what inspired you to actually take the route of becoming a nasheed artist?
Well, it was '94. It was a very important year for me because, of course, the country was changing, and Alhamdulillah, I was 18 years old. I voted for the first time. It was incredible. Yeah. But two things happened that year that was quite remarkable. One, I lost my best friend. As I said, I didn't have a brother, but he was like my brother. I'd known him since he was 5 years old. We grew up together. We went to the same school and to the same madrasa, and we played sports together. And both of us being 18, 19 years old, he got shot in Johannesburg and he passed away. And that, I think, shook me to my core, because I realized, okay, so if Allah can take us at any time, even at a young age, because we don't think that, at young people that death is applicable to us, but Allah can take us at any time. Then I was going through a lot of changes. And then I remember my mom and my dad said, why don't you try to write songs and express how you're feeling? And two songs that came out at that time was I Remember Your Smile, a song that I wrote for my friend. And the first sort of nasheed that I wrote was a simple song called Give Thanks to Allah. And Give Thanks to Allah was really about just turning everything that bad happens to you and the tests that you go through and the challenges, and really being grateful to still being here and being able to change and reflect and grow. And that was what that song was about. And that's how it all began. And 26 years later, alhamdulillah, I can't believe, I'm so blessed that I'm still writing songs and I'm still producing songs. And more importantly, that there's still people who are listening and want to hear my new songs, which is remarkable. So, but if I think back to 1994 and how it all started with one or two songs, it's only through Allah's will and through Allah's blessings that things like this have happened.
Now, I love that you said that in '94 that you used to write songs about obviously the friend that passed. May Allah Subhanahu wa Taala grant him Jannah. But what message, as a nasheed artist, are you trying to portray out there?
I think that's a very good question. I think if I had to sum it up, it will probably be one of hope, because I think hope is the underlying feature as human beings is what we need, what we have inside. Because life here on earth is always going to be filled with trials. We somehow have this impression in our minds that things are meant to be perfect and things are meant to be good and great. But yes, alhamdulillah, we do have days, but we're also going to have tough times. So I think if I look at maybe the general course of all the songs I've done, there's an underlying hope that I myself, the lesson for me first and foremost, and for everyone listening, is just to be more hopeful and never lose the sight and hope in the mercy of Allah. And then also, most importantly, to prepare for the life to come, because this life is so short.
Absolutely. Now, I know that you have written, I would say, hundreds and hundreds of nasheeds that the whole world sing to and absolutely enjoy. But how does your work relate to what's happening in the world currently, be it politically, be it socially? How does your work really reflect what's happening in the world?
I think from the beginning it was, it was more about the identity of being a Muslim and using songs as a means of education. So whether it was Give Thanks to Allah or the Eid song or, songs about the Prophet ﷺ, so those songs have always formed the basis of my work, of many, many, many songs. But I think over the years, I've also, as a human being living in this world and growing, I've also looked at other socially important songs, like, for example, I wrote a song many years ago called Our World, or songs like My Mom is Amazing, or Who I Am, like songs that are meant to empower us in this world. I wrote many, many songs about injustice, like Guantanamo Bay, or I've done a cover of Heal the World, for example, or Someday, or things like that. So I think that I would like to think that my songs have also had, inshallah, a socially positive, aspect to it, that we're trying to bring about social change through awareness. I mean, songs are really just to bring awareness to someone's mind and to ours after that, and maybe they can spur people on to social change. I even wrote a song about domestic violence called Better Day, and that was also important to me. So I think spanning from songs that are purely spiritual in nature and internalized, but also songs about the world and how we can be better human beings, inshallah.
Absolutely. Now, I know everybody in the world has somebody who influences them in a positive way and a negative way. Now, who is Zain Bhikha's biggest influence?
Well, my parents, I think, without a doubt. My mom and my dad formed the foundation of everything that I am and that I know. In the early years, in this field of singing and nasheed, I had no one to turn to, but I knew there was a very famous Muslim, Yusuf Islam, and he had embraced Islam as a famous singer and a musician. So he was my big mentor, and I met him in 1999, and he helped me tremendously in terms of getting my voice out of South Africa and into the rest of the world. And then my good friend Darwin Wansby, he remains a big inspiration as a songwriter and as a singer. Many people know his songs from around the world, and I still think he's one of the best songwriters of nasheed that we have around, alhamdulillah. Absolutely. And then of course, as a Muslim, we can't ignore the fact that our sources of knowledge come from the Quran and the Sunnah. And the example of the Prophet ﷺ, and I'm still learning, I'm far from where I should be as a Muslim, as a human being. But I learn as I go along, inshallah, more about the Prophet ﷺ. And the more I learn, the more I realize that he was the best human being that was sent to the earth as a mercy for us to learn from and to emulate. So I hope that answers the question, inshallah. It's a very broad answer.
It does answer that. But what I want to know, behind all your hundreds of beautiful nasheeds, how do you navigate your, I would say, your inspirational world, your imagination, where you come up with all these amazing nasheeds? Like, how do you get to that space?
Yeah, I must say, it is intimidating as you get older, because when I was young, every single idea that I had seemed amazing, and every single song that I sang. But as you get older and you've done so many songs, I'm actually working on a new song at the moment, and it's called 99 Lives. And again, self-doubt creeps in, and you also become older and you become maybe a little lazy, and also you have other focuses and you think, but when you're young, you have that vibrancy of youth. So inshallah, I think the important thing is to look for inspiration around you. Like I look for inspiration in my children. I look for inspiration when I'm living in Cape Town now, so we have so many beautiful, so much nature around us, and just in beauty and humanity daily. But the trick is really to tap into that, because many of us are creative, but we don't often give ourselves the chance or believe in ourselves. So if you are a creative person and you feel inspired, believe in yourself and start writing something or sharing it with the world. You'll be amazed by how much you can do if you just believe in yourself, inshallah.
Absolutely. Now, I do know that for your album Cotton Candy Sky, you did go on tour. Now, what I want to know is, how do you cope being so far away from home, your family? Like, how do you cope, like, being on the road constantly?
Oh, I don't think anyone has ever asked me that question, and it's such an important question because it's with great difficulty. I can tell you, traveling is never easy. My family will tell me that I'm a nervous wreck when I'm traveling because I love being at home and I love being in the comforts of what I know. So traveling puts you out of that comfort zone, and you're right. You're away from your family, you're away from your normal surroundings, and even pre-COVID, traveling was so difficult. So with the lockdown, I must say that's the one thing that I do enjoy is I'm not traveling as much, but it's about keeping the end result. Like when I do get there to the place that I'm traveling to, earlier last year before lockdown, I was in Sierra Leone with Mufti Menk, and it was unbelievable. The people came out to greet us, and there were so many thousands of people in the stadium. So I guess the reaction from the event that we have really makes all the difficulty worthwhile, because you just realize that Allah gave you a gift that you didn't earn at all, and all that good comes from Him. And yet you're on a journey now and you're traveling to these places, so you should also be grateful and humble about it. So alhamdulillah, I think if you keep your eye on the end goal, then it makes the journey easier.
Absolutely. Now, I know that you have been, I would say almost all around the world, but what has been the cherry on the top for your Nasheed career? Which has been the best performance that you have had?
I think three places come to mind. Definitely Sierra Leone, the one I mentioned. It was the biggest crowd I ever sang in front of over 100,000 people. Not to see me necessarily, they came to see Mufti Menk. I was just the introduction. But alhamdulillah, that was amazing. And then definitely I went to Russia once. I sang in Moscow for a small Muslim community there. That was incredible. I think I never imagined that me as a South African guy from Pretoria to travel all the way to Russia to sing.
Yeah.
And that happened a couple of years ago. And then the third one is it's also another African country in West Africa called Ivory Coast. And I was in Abidjan twice actually. And the people are so vibrant, and it's such a beautiful country. There's so many wars and so much conflict. But the community there is just so beautiful. So I think that would also stand out as one of the places that I never imagined I would go, but also one of the best places I've been.
Okay, so now let's fast forward to the recent times. Now, I do know that your latest Nasheed that I've heard is featuring Mu'ad. Tell us a little bit more about that, because it's so amazing. I absolutely loved it.
Alhamdulillah, so many people have commented about that song, and we also so amazed of how it came out. And it's interesting that you say that, because it literally happened by mistake. I was on my Instagram and I saw this guy singing, and I thought, wow, he's got such an amazing voice, and he was singing his version of the same song. So I reached out to him and I said, man, I would love to do something with this song. Like, it's in Arabic, but I would like to add some English and add my own verse and my own chorus. So he's a young guy, and he was very open to it. He sent me the files. It was during lockdown, so we didn't even meet till today. And I added my vocals. I wrote a verse, and I was just so inspired by the thought about us trying to reach Jannah, and that whole concept was so beautiful to me. And then I sent it back to him, and sometimes Allah puts barakah into something, and it takes on like a life of its own. And that's what happened with that song. Now, so many people have commented, so many people feel inspired by it, and it happened just by the will of Allah, that I was able to see it, and then He was okay for us to do a new version. And alhamdulillah, I'm very, very happy with that song.
Absolutely. And now, what should we look forward to in the near future with your Nasheed career? What can we look forward to?
Well, over the last few years, I've done many songs aimed at young children, and we've created this brand called ZB Kids. So the Cotton Candy Sky, Allah made everything, Allah, everything belongs to Allah. All these songs ended up being in this sort of genre of kiddies Islamic educational songs. So we're working on a really beautiful project for children, a few more songs for kids coming out inshallah later this year. And then from the more mature, sort of more traditional songs that I've been doing, I also want to launch a new album this year. It has been a while. It has been 3 years since I've launched the last album. So I think it's about time. I mustn't leave it too long. And I have got a few songs that I'm busy recording. So I pray with Allah's help that I can launch all of this year, inshallah.
Inshallah, Ameen. From the team here, we wish you all the best for your career. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put so much of barakah in the work that you do. A lot of people around the world are inspired by the work that you do. And keep on growing, Zain. Keep on growing.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much, Bibi Amina, and I really appreciate talking to you and being hosted on your show. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Jazakallah so much for joining us.
Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. And thank you for watching today's edition of Let's Sit Down with myself, Bibi Amina Fili. Don't forget to join us every weekend as we give you your amazing dose of what's happening around us. Don't forget to like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram. And if you have any feedback, you can send your feedback to Let's Sit Down with me, South Africa @gmail.com. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. From the team, Assalamu alaikum.